Captain on the bridge.
Alright, captains, we are back on the bridge again, and today what I wanted to do was make a video on items that I recommend from the Lobi store. Now, I've done recommendation videos before on the tier 5, tier 6, and promo, and that's because as of recording this video, we do have the year-long event campaign that is going on. And part of the prizes of that year-long event campaign is Lobi. So, what I want to do is give my recommendations on what Lobi items to get. So, what we'll do is go over the list, drop my 2 ECs, and again, captains, keep in mind, this is more for like kind of casual gameplay, my type of gameplay. There will be some happy accidents that do dabble in the meta, but for the most part, a lot of this, most of this is just items that are for spacebar. Feel good. So here we go. One of those actual recommendations is this ship, is the NX. Captains, on my build videos, you know that I mention this ship because it comes with a console that I use a lot, especially on my torpedo builds, which is the Bombardment Warhead. This is one of my favorite ships in game. This model is really something that has grown on me, and it's a great ship to have. It's a great escort. It really is. So here we go. First recommendation right there, the NX, and it comes with the Bombardment Warhead. Also, it comes with another trait that's, you go here, through here, look for the NX. Comes with a trait that I use a lot on my beam overload builds, and it's not just me, but a lot of other captains as well. So here is the console it comes with. The Point Defense Bombardment Warhead Universal Console. So this can be outfitted on any ship. Also, when you pair this up with Chemosite, all the little projectiles that it fires, it literally trips Chemosite. So it's a glorious visual photon explosion. That didn't sound too good, but sure. But also, when you get the trait off of the ship, it will unlock preferential targeting, which when you activate beam fire at will or cannon scatter volley, it will cause a beam overload or rapid fire, increased damage for the next 30 seconds. So this is a really, really good trait, captains, and one of the first things I'll recommend definitely is this ship. One, it's canon, Star Trek Enterprise. Two, has a great universal console. 3, preferential targeting. So I would put this on top of the list there as recommendations, but what we're going to do here along is just go over the tabs here. So there's that, my first recommendation. Not to say any of the other ships that are not good, but like I said, I'm recommending stuff that I have. Now, there are some stuff that I will also recommend for other type of builds, and or maybe because it's canon, like this next one here, which is the Maki Raider. It's a good little ship. I know fellow captains enjoy the ship, but this comes with one of Saifu's favorite console, which is the Plasma Storm Module Universal Console. Now, if you've ever been to the Terran battle zone, you'll see those huge funnel orange thingies. Yes, orange thingies. This is essentially what it is, and it's used on a lot of Sai builds. I'm not the best Saifu captain. I don't have the ship personally, but I have thought about it because I might want to mess with a Saifu build, but it's an option there again, captains, for you. Again, this console is really good, and it literally spits out a plasma storm from your ship. Like, who wouldn't want that? So there's that. Also, the other ship that we will recommend is the Walker class light exploration cruiser, which you see on the thumbnail there. This was the ship that we saw in Discovery. Now, I didn't think we were going to get the ship in game back then, and I actually fell in love with the ship. It's a little out of place, definitely, in terms of how it looks, but again, we won't get into that. That might be a totally different video to discuss on things that are not looking where they should be. But regardless, it has a very, very good /Federation design, and I love it. And it has, and with the revamp of the Intel seating, this ship does have Intel seating. So there is that. The console on it that comes is okay. I know it was used back then, but I don't see it in use. Not to say that you can't use it. When you use it, you're like literally immune for the whole time until you get out of it, and then you get like bonus damage when you get out of it. It looks like your ship's actually damaged and your ship starts farting. Well, not farting, but leaking plasma. So it's a cool, could be for space Barbie /RP purposes. So there's that in mind. Now, this does come with a trait, of course, the Vulcan Hello, just shield and armor pen at the beginning of battle. Again, it's nothing that I see used, but for the ship itself, it's a great ship. Highly recommend it for the Space Barbie. It looks really good, Captains. One of my favorite ships. So there's that. The next one that we're recommending here from the Ship and Crew tab is the Sona Intel Battle Cruiser. I do have this ship. This ship and the next ship that we'll go over is actually the ones that I got for the Lobi that we were getting throughout the year last year in 2021. This has one of the pivotal sort of traits for a torpedo build, which is the subspatial warheads. It's a really, really good trait, Captains. It literally spits out what I've called flying eyelashes at your opponents, but it also does a lot of damage when you use high yield, because it actually creates these like subspatial anomalies that do physical damage, and it's really, really good for torpedo builds and any build that you want to have a high yield on. I've seen sort of cannon with 2 ends builds use a torpedo with high yield with EBM, does massive amounts of damage. So I got this personally for the trait itself. Nothing that I don't normally do, but I said I had the Lobi, and there was a great sale that came out. We'll talk about that more in terms of when you get the Lobi, if you choose the Lobi. But this recommendation for the ship, definitely if you have a torpedo boat or even energy builds, if you have a torpedo on there that uses high yield, this can do a lot of good damage. So there's that. The next one we will go to here is the Kelvin Timeline Intel Dreadnought Cruiser, which is the USS Vengeance. This was the first ship I got that was expensive, and I actually got this from the exchange. Because when these items, when you buy them, you can actually post them up in the exchange if you want to. Normally, the recommendation is don't buy ships with Lobi. Buy them and sell them for EC. And usually it's buy them also for the space gear, but we'll go over that when we get to the space gear tab. But the Vengeance was one of the first expensive ships I got in game. I love it. We have a video coming up for it, a build on it. It is a very imposing ship. It was from the KT timeline, Kelvin timeline, and it just looks really good. All about looking good. And it has one of those consoles too. If you do a theme build for this, it has kind of what we saw in the movie, where it would fire a bunch of phaser shots when you're broadsiding your target. So it's called Broadside Emitter Arrays Universal Console. Now you pair this with the Kelvin timeline phasers, when you're broadsiding, it just looks glorious. Just a spitting out gloriousness of KT phaser goodness. So there's that. Next ship up that we'll recommend also is the Zindy Primate Adileth Dreadnought Cruiser. This is the second ship that I got from the Lobi store when I had a bunch of Lobi, and then there was a sale. Actually, the sale was actually 50%, so I could not get this. I got this for the trait itself, Captain. So yes, it has command seat, which is awesome. You know, Captains, I love my command seating, but this ship has a trait that is literally, that people would say is essential for beam overload builds, especially if you're min-maxing. So this unlocks the Super Weapon Ingenuity Starship trait and increases duration of beam overload by 5 seconds. Literally, this is going to be up 100% of the time. And Captains, you know how much I love hearing back-to-back beam overloads. This trait just extends it, and it's a soundgasm. That's what it is. So it's a good ship on its own, and definitely something worth picking up, especially if you want to do torpedo builds. But really, I got this definitely for the beam overload aspect of it, so I can have all that soundgasm, like I said. So there's that. There is also, next up, the... Where'd it go? It is here, I promise. It is her. An Intel Husnook. That Kelvin. The cruiser. There you go. The Astika Heavy Battle Cruiser. Now this ship reminds me of Spaceship Yamato. Not the Yamato that we have in game, but the Yamato that has like a wave cannon. It's a really good ship, and we're gonna do a theme stream, probably like to have that sort of theme going on, like Battleship Yamato. Back in the day when this came out, it did have a very good trait, which is the Supremacy. So while the starship trait is slotted, activating beam, fire at will, or cannon scatter volley will provide a small boost to all subsystem power levels per target hit for a short time. As these attack modes are active, this bonus stacks up to 20 times. So it is a good trait still, I believe, for energy weapons. I got this ship directly just for the looks, to be honest with you. I'm not really into that type of looks, but this ship actually did it for me, and I did end up using the trait because I had it. And like I said, we're going to do a theme stream with battleships, and this is going to be one of the ships that I use. It does come with the Vaudoir weaponry that looks like sort of pulsed phaser looks. It's unfortunately something you can't level up or upgrade, but it still looks good when you're doing it. So there's that recommendation there. And that's kind of all the ones that I recommend here for ship-wise. Anything else, Captains, of course, you're more than welcome to get if it's something that you're looking for, but those are my recommendations here for ship and crew. Now for space gear, again, most of these things that I do own. So we'll start here for the space trait, the Boimler effect. Now, this has changed a lot of builds, and it freed up actually a lot of room, especially if you're sort of low on engineering, because for the longest time I used Ox to Bat builds, which helped with cooldowns, but you would lose essentially 2 stations, and or even the half Ox to Bat or Photonic Officer to help with your cooldowns. This changed all that when this came out. So it provides a chance for using non-specialist bridge officer abilities to recharge all other bridge officer ability recharge times up to their respective shared cooldown categories. So I've noticed, even without Oxabat or Photonic Officer, that my abilities are essentially, it feels up like almost 100% of the time. There may be that odd moment where it's not, but it doesn't feel like, okay, hurry up, hurry up. No, I don't feel that when I have this straight slotted, and I have gotten this for all of my tunes, even my alts. It's that good of an ability, captains. I highly, highly recommend this one. And it's a Boimler. Having them on your ship, come on now. Lower deck, shout out, what? There's that. I do also recommend the 22nd Century set, which is the Wide Arc Phase Cannons, Spatial Torpedo Launcher, and the Reinforced Weapon Assembly. So this kind of gives you the theme of Enterprise. Definitely put this on my NX. It's a great ship. When this is firing, it looks like pulsed phasers, but like better. And it sounds pretty cool too. It sounds like the phasers that were used in Star Trek Enterprise. And I do see a lot of captains use this even in higher end builds. So as you can see there, it's like plus 10% energy weapon every 10 seconds, plus 25% projectile weapon damage for 10 seconds. And this actually has a very cool weapon set. You have it here. We'll go over it actually since I have it on the ship. More details. So with those three, 2-piece, Careless Overload. So enables Careless Overload firing mode. Like I said, it looks really cool. And just a light show, essentially, in space. Ration Phase Cannon, Spatial Torpedo offline for 10 seconds. And then the set 3 bonus, 100% recharge time speed for Careless Overload. Remove expiration penalty from Careless Overload. So definitely, captains, I use this as a theme build. I have this, again, this is just an alt that I have it on. And this Spatial Torpedo looks like, essentially like those Ferengi missiles. It's kind of how it looks like. But I got it for the theme. On a sale, definitely I would recommend it. Maybe one sale at a time over time to get it. But I like it. It's a very good set to have, especially for the NX that I have. Next up, we recommend also the Bowel Linked Sentry set. So the Coordinate Matrix, the Anti-Proton Omni, and the Anti-Proton Kinetic Torpedo. So I've got this because of my tank, my channel tank that I use nightly, which I put on the Galaxy. Now, I know captains, I always like to have my ships under cannon looks all the time. This Omni actually does look like a phaser from Star Trek Picard, believe it or not. All the beams do. These Bowel Link Sentry beams, they look like phasers. They don't sound like phasers, but they look like phasers. And sometimes we're just going for the looks. But even then, the sound of it now in Star Trek Picard, they don't sound like your normal phasers anymore. But regardless, look, it's really good set for tanking, especially these two, the Bowel Link Sentry Coordinate Matrix and the Anti-Proton Omni. So if you're going into tanking, definitely highly recommend these two. This I got just for the sake of getting. And I put this on my tank tune that I use for just channel nightly runs. And it's great to have. Again, is it a must-have? Not necessarily. You can tank without it. We've tanked before this came out, but it is a really good set. So there's that. Next one, I'll recommend these as well, is the Ultimate Modified Weapon. So the Swarm Processor, the Plasma Omni, the Kelvin Torpedo. This 3-piece gives you like 100% haste. It's ridiculous how much haste this will give you. We actually use this on recent cannon builds on the Inquiry and the Deimos pilot that we have in our channel there. So go check it out. But this is essentially on all of like the cannon, for all the cannon builds, for all the weight, haste that it provides. It's like 100%. It's a clicky. So you can actually click this manually when you have all these three. And plus, it's a good Plasma Omni to have. I actually have this on my main and also my Romulan, if I decide to use it on that. So it's a good set. And the Kelvin torpedoes, captains, you know I love my torpedoes, so definitely it has that Kelvin sort of effect on it. It's really cool. The lens flare. It can, even the actual image has like lens flare. It's hilarious. So Highly recommend that as well. The next ones I'll recommend here is the Delphic Set, so the Anti-Proton Beam Bank and the Distortion Torpedo. Now, this torpedo, captains, you know I have on a lot of my meta torp build, not just myself, but the high-end players use this as well. It is a very, very good torpedo under high yield for big targets. This thing will take down, in a support run, will take down target and give you big deeps. If you're looking for the big deeps, this is part of that. So this is part of the Fatal 4. If you've watched any of my previous sort of meta torp builds, we mentioned that this is part of the Fatal 4. Delphic Distortion Torpedo. Now, when you pair it up with the Delphic Anti-Proton, the two-piece actually does give you more critical chance. So it's not bad. I am using actually right now on my World Razor build, just because the Fatal 4 plus this, more crit chance doesn't hurt. So again, this is kind of if you're more going for the min-max, this is a definitely good set to pick up in my opinion as well. Next up, we have the Bio-Neural Infusion Circuits. Captains, you know that I have this on all of my builds. It's that good of a console. It's a very old console, but it's still a very good console just for the straight up boost that it gives you for critical severity. 17.5% crit severity. Now, this also does increase your Starship hull capacity, 19.7, and of course that feeds into Tyler's duality. So it's still a good console and one of the ones that I recommend still up till this day and beyond. If you look at that, straight up just crit severity bonus. The other one here is the Tachyo Kinetic Converter. This has really good uses, I find, on ships that back in the day couldn't turn much, but with the introduction of the competition rep engines, I've seen that kind of replace this, but this on itself is still a good console, because look at that. It gives a boost to your flight turn rate. It still gives you crit chance and crit severity. So it's nothing to sneeze at. And of course, you can upgrade this. So it is still a good console, and for a lot of my alt tunes, I do get this. Still these two for the straight up bonuses it gives. So there's that, the Tachyo Kinetic Converter. For fun, these last two, I get the Rapid Fire Missile Launcher. I have a build upcoming, and I'm definitely going to be using this as part of that theme build, just because it's hilarious. It could be doing like -1 DPS, but this is literally just for looks. Literally just for looks. There's that. And also, I did actually get this console way back in the day, and I did get it for the 13.1 torpedo damage, but now, of course, the 13.1 mine and torpedo damage. It's a good sort of console to have if you had nothing else to get in the Lobi store. And I have used it here and there on some of my torpedo builds because, captains, you know I put torpedoes and mines on that, so it boosts it a little bit. So why not? So there's that. So that's the space gear. Now for ground gear, we're here to our recommendations here. So first and foremost, the portable phaser cannon special issue. This is from Lower Decks. This is the Shaxx cannon. This is hilarious. I love this ground weapon. I bought it for all of my feds. It is that good. Now they have, quote unquote, adjusted it, nerf, but it still hits pretty hard. And it has a secondary fire, which is huge, just phaser lance on ground. So for looks, plus it invokes Lower Decks, 100%. I totally would recommend this, and it looks good. It looks pretty darn good on the ground. Now, if you also want all these Lower Decks stuff too, they're here too. So the multi-barrel phaser pistol, the phaser split beam rifle, the phaser sniper rifle, and then this armor here, the T-88 diagnostic toolkit. So they're all here. I didn't get any of these, but I definitely got the portable phaser cannon. So there's that. Now, the other ones that I'll recommend I believe that this... There, they're right here. Yeah, so the BATD Extractor and the Borg Exoskeletal frame. Now, this came out with the Borg lockbox, and definitely for the Space Barbie, because I do intend on doing a theme sort of build and also look for my main, because I got this on my main. This actually makes you look like a Borg. It's really cool. Plus, this looks like the arm aperture that you have, that Picard had, just for the Space Barbie. And then I don't have the Borg Juggernaut, but what I plan on doing is just Borgifying one of my ships, like probably like a Breen ship, to make it look, because those things look like Borg ships anyway. So those are recommended there. Those two for Space Barbie. The Emperor Sword, I like it because when you can actually summon 2 Terran soldiers. Just because. And it has a real cool animation with it too when you're using it. The Emperor Sword. And on sale, these things are pretty cheap. I know Lobi is kind of a very precious commodity here, resource here in Star Trek Online, but if you have the spare, you've gotten everything that you wanted, you can consider this on the list of having. There's that. Now, the Phaser Full Auto Disco Rifle, I believe this is still a pretty good ground weapon to have. So that's recommended there. Plus, it actually looks really good. I do like it. There's a theme here, Captains. 90%, almost 95%, maybe 99.9, get things because they look good. All right, okay. There's that. Next one, the Boolean Heavy Assault Cannon, or what we call here the Cannon. So this was in Star Trek Beyond, I believe. I believe it was Beyond. The one with Khan in the Star Trek Kelvin timeline movies. This thing hits like a truck. Still one of my favorite underslung weapons, just like the portable phaser cannon there. And it really is a good ground weapon still, and hits still pretty hard. I know it's not actually Beyond, but it's one of the Kelvin timeline movies with Khan in it. So I love it. It looks very mean, very menacing. I had this on my main for the longest time, right before the Shaxx cannon. And the secondary hit, it is a little slow in terms of fire rate, but it hits hard. Still hits pretty hard. There's that. Now, I know a lot of captains also use this, the Advanced Herald Anti-Proton Beam Projector, because this doesn't only hit one target, hits multiple targets. So, till this day, I see a lot of people using this. It's a good-looking weapon. I don't have it personally, but I know it still does well. The other weapon here that I will recommend is the Voss Anti-Proton Shock Trooper Cannon. I believe this was the first Lobi weapon I got. So if you do the Voss Battle Zone Captains, there are those like little turrets that sometimes spawn and shoot at you. Of course they shoot at you. But this is what it reminds me of. When you look at this model, it looks like one of those, but they just put a handle on it so you can use it. It's not a beam, it's an actual like cannon burst, like what it says there. And it sounds cool. I really do like the way it sounds. So there is that. And of course, if you want, you have a Ferengi Energy Whip. It is hilarious. I have this on my Klingon. It's just a good weapon to have just because. Especially if you have a Ferengi tune, have at her. So there's that for the ground gear. Those are just, again, my recommendations. Costume-wise, there's not a lot here, but there's still some good ones here. So where is that? The... Again, you can just right-click these, and then you can see how these look here for at least. So this is the lower deck's uniform. Pretty good. I didn't get it yet. If I decide to go full-on lower decks theme, definitely I'll pick this up. You can also buy these on the exchange, but again, if you have the low buy to spend, if you really want that look, there is that. For the lower decks. I was going to recommend this. I know this is from the new Discovery show, the 32nd Century. A lot of my other fellow captains like this. I'm going to recommend it because it is canon. It is something that is on screen right now. You see, you can have all the disco fields if you want with this outfit there. Of course, the other ones here that I recommend are the ones from the Wrath of Khan. So there you got your jacket there. You got the vest and the captain's vest. I like this one. I really do like that one. It's really cool. The survival suit, one of my favorites looking ones. It looks very, very hero-esque, if I may say so. So that is from, again, the Star Trek Kelvin timeline movies. I love it. It really looks really good in terms of the looks. It looks very tactical, but also hero-esque, like I said. Section 31 badge. I mean, it is a Section 31 badge. It's not necessarily worth it, but if you had something and you wanted that theme for the Section 31, there you go. And of course, as of this recording, they released a third ship for the Section 31 fleet. So if you have a tune really heavily into that theme, you have this option for you. The Terran Empire uniform set from Discovery. I absolutely recommend this. This looks really good, especially if you all knit out your boss. I love this arm piece there, this guard, and also the hip attachment there. Really good looking set. I have it on my main, paired up with the other Terran stuff, so it has some really good pieces on it, and you can space barbie all day with this. That's in terms of recommendation. We keep going here for the Kelvin Timeline Federation uniforms. Again, it's a great update to the TOS ones. It looks pretty much like it, but just again, it's updated. Now, I do know that there are some clipping issues with the female costume. I've seen it on one of my fellow captains' tunes that he made to look like Carol Marcus. It's very glaring, especially when they're running, but it still looks good. All of this stuff. So there's that. Cannot not recommend this because, of course, it's canon, it's on screen, it's on the movies. Now, the Terran Empire Odyssey outfit. It's great when you mix this up with other pieces, definitely, and this does have some really good pieces to it. So recommend the Terran Empire Odyssey outfit there. Of course, you also still have the one that says Lita's variants, which is a little bit more tactical looking, has a lot more of those things that you see there, like the straps there, the pockets, the hip attachments. So it looks really good. In terms of anything else here, I mean, you do have the Wells uniform pack. I know a fellow captain of mine who loves the theme for the Wells stuff, so he loves that uniform. Of course, you still have the DS9 uniform set. It is here. They don't show a picture of it, but this is one of the older ones in game. You want that look, it's there for you. I think that's pretty much it that I have to recommend for the costumes. Vanity Pets, I don't really have anything here to recommend, to be honest with you. There's nothing here that interests me, so I'm not even going to try to recommend that for you. Of course, for devices, the last thing here, captains, is the gambling device, which is right there. So this actually gives increased dodge and critical hits. You activate it. When you hear at the beginning of ground TFOs that sound of like gambling, like there's a countdown and then there's either a sort of you win and or you lose sound. It's hilarious. It's a great device to have on ground, still used to this day, even on meta builds, because it's nothing to sneeze at the critical chance that this gives you on ground. So that's essentially all my recommendations, captains, for the Lobi set. Again, this is part of something that you can get for the event reward, which is 1500 Lobi. And again, I would recommend, captains, if you do decide to go the Lobi crystal route, wait for a sale. I spoke to this earlier. I got the Sona battle cruiser and the Primate ship with Lobi, but on a 50% sale. I know as of this recording, there is a 20% sale going on right now, but if you can wait, I would suggest to wait for those. Can I guarantee that they're going to come back? No, but if you're patient and we get lucky and we get another one, you can get a lot more bang out of your buck, especially if you choose the Lobi crystal. So again, captains, my recommendation is always to just keep doing the daily events, even if just for the daily events. Again, as of this recording, we have the Reflections of Empire event going on, so that's the second campaign. But again, this recommendation for Lobi is also good for newer players or players that have Lobi in their inventory to burn. So those are just my 2 ECs on the recommendations for all those items. Again, at the end of the day, this is something that you'd have to sort of look into yourself, captains, and make that decision. But those are my recommendations for Lobi. I know this is like one of the longer videos, but this is kind of the same length as the T6 Tier 5 and the promo. Lobi is a very, very good and very scarce resource that we have in Star Trek Online, because you only get them via opening lockboxes or R&D packs. But in the event campaign, you can get this actually as a reward. So I thought I'd throw this out there, drop my 2 ECs on what to recommend, especially for newer players, so that there's a starting point at least there. And by all means, do have a look around, captains, at other YouTube content creators' suggestions. This is just mine. But leave your comments below, leave a like on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we help us reach out to more captains. But captains, those are my 2 ECs, and we will leave it on this note.
Live long and prosper.